Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you so much for being here and tuning into the origin story episode on the PC modding and making podcast with myself, Derek. I'm the creative behind Rhoads Pc. I want this podcast to be kind of based on doing interviews with others and other people in the industry doing PC mods and PC builds. But I thought, you know, if I'm going to ask others their story, I should share my own first. And, there's a lot to that. But PC modding is kind of not where I started. I started in PC building. So, what I want to talk about is PC modding, modifying computers. So, that is the niche hobby that I am in and that others are in that I'm trying to, bring to the masses and shed some light on from my, you know, my little corner of the universe. So, there's a lot of things that go with that. And you can consider doing very little to your computer to be PC modding, like adding a sticker, changing a bracket. I want to add a window where there wasn't one, or you can go like right off the deep end and do a complete scratch build, or completely change the look of a case. So a scratch build would be building a computer case 100% from scratch. So I did one, for example, that was a Fallout Wasteland themed build earlier this year, and I completely built the case out of some MDF and foam, added models, added the holes to route all the cables, things like that. So that's kind of on the deep end of a mod in the sense that it was a scratch build. I made it all up, designed it, or you could kind of tone it down. And where I started was just getting into things like doing vinyl stickers or a bit of a paint on a PC build. So when you build a computer for somebody else in the DIY style is when you order all the parts up, put them together, and build them for somebody. And I first started modding in the sense that I would do a computer build for somebody and I wanted their build to have my logo on it, learned how to make the logo, or drew it on there or etched the glass. And boom, just like that, I was a PC modder in my head. But I've learned a lot about the industry since then. And that's kind of why I thought, hey, a podcast might be a cool platform to talk about my story and learn other people's stories and just go over things, daily events like PAX West just happened. So PAX West is a gigantic event down in Seattle. I didn't make it, but I did have a build there. But all the builders that I look up to were all there, representing different brands that they've gotten the chance to work with. So here we are on the podcast in my basement on Wednesday night, going over my origin story as to why I call myself a PC modder and what that looks like to me each time I approach the hobby. And I guess you would say it started, let's go back 4 or 5 years, doing computer builds for myself and my friends. So I was always doing builds for myself, and there was a lot of buzz around new hardware coming out a few years ago. And I thought, oh, I just did the build for myself and it was fun. I want to do another build for myself. I can't afford the parts. So you kind of ask around, right? So I found my friends, hey, do you need a computer build? I'll build one for you. I want a chance to check out, the new graphics card with the Asus cooler on it, or the new motherboard that, Gigabyte just put out, and things like that. And that kind of branched into being quite busy with PC builds. So I just called myself a builder for a long time. And I think the first year I got to building computers locally, I had something like, 54 builds, 60 builds, something like that, sold locally. But with so many builds going out, I started to want to be able to brand my products. So that led to things like vinyl and etching the glass. So the first step into the vinyl was I was actually doing builds. I was doing a build for my guild leader. So I played a lot of World of Warcraft in earlier years, especially Legion. I was deep into Legion. Love that game, man. I had a main of like every class, but mainly I played a paladin. Roll Pally, represent. But I was doing a build for my guild leader uh, during Legion. His name's Brian. He's super dope. And when I was sending him the computer, I thought, this is my guild leader, the dude who's ran me through X amount of dungeons, carried me through raids. I got to make his computer look cool. So I bought like gold thumb screws off MNPC Tech website, and I added some golden vinyl to try to make it match. And I also got cables from Cable Mod. That was the first set of custom cables I ever learned about that were golden gray to kind of match his build. And I was pretty happy with that build. And that went out, what was this? 2019. I sent that down. He lives in Chicago and I'm in Northern Alberta, Canada. So it was kind of new to me to ship a computer to him. And it wasn't without its hitches. That computer actually went down to Chicago, and in shipping I left the graphics card installed, which completely borked the motherboard because it bounced around in shipping and all this stuff. It was a total mess when it got to him. He had to bring it to a different computer shop in Chicago, get it fixed. So that was my first lesson in shipping. But he's a really good guy in understanding with how new I was to it and what I was trying to do. And I appreciated that. After that, I started doing another 2 builds. So I was really big into the NZXT. I forget what they're called, the 700 series cases when they came out. They were just so big and open and versatile that I wanted to do a couple builds with them. So I built one for myself, and I built one for another guy I had met through World of Warcraft, my buddy Ben, and he lives way far away in Australia, and I did ship him a computer. So I built these 2 in the NZXT 700s, and that's when I first met George with GS Customs, because I knew about cable mods, cables from my last build, and I wanted to kind of one up that in the sense that find somebody locally, and there was nobody obviously locally to me, but I was able to find someone in Canada, and that was GS Customs. And I talked to him about cables and how their different custom cables are rated for different temperatures, and how he could do a whole versatile set of different colors and cable combs and stuff like that. And I've stuck with GS Customs ever since then, because G is just, he's the man. If you reach out to him on Instagram, GS Customs, you won't be disappointed. He's been super helpful and supportive the whole time I've known him. And there was times when I would have like the stupidest questions, and George would be like, "Oh, very patiently and kind, I will teach you how to solve this problem." He's a super good dude. So me and him did the 2 NZXT 700 builds. I did one for myself, and I did one for Ben in Australia. His was like a white and a blue themed build. But what I did learn then was don't ship with a graphics card installed. So I sent his computer without a graphics card, and he bought a graphics card local to him and installed it when it got there. And that one went off without a hitch. The other NZXT 700 that I built for myself, I kept for a little while until I wanted to upgrade, and then I sold it to a guy a couple towns over and shipped it to him with no issues. From there, I kind of stayed pretty busy locally with builds. I think Christmas rolled around, because that was November. Christmas rolled around, and I did 3 or 4 builds for people around Christmas. And during that time, I was thinking, well, got to keep up my logo, got to make these things kind of special for people during Christmas. So you do things like add colors or nice fans with your logo, and maybe a bit of a theme. I started asking people their gamer tag. So like if you came to me and wanted to build, but you had a gamer tag, so mine would have been Rhoads, I would get that, put somewhere in the case for them, which kind of like, that was my little modding bubble when I started, was I can put your gamer tag and my logo on your build, and I know how to get custom cables, which was a step above them going to Staples here locally and buying a computer, right? So that was my kind of introduction into being a PC builder, and then a PC modder, because I could put your sticker on it, which counts, and it does make it much better, but it was just the start. After that, I sent one to a friend of mine down in Calgary, and when it got to him, the EPS cable had come unplugged during shipping. There's a theme here that shipping is kind of a challenge with these things. The EPS cable had come unplugged, and he wasn't really into troubleshooting, so he sent it all the way back to me. And when I got it, I looked into it, found out the issue, and fixed it. But I thought, I'm going to do something special and paint it for him. I'll paint the whole thing. So I did a gold and like a charcoal colored theme, gold on the inside, charcoal on the outside. But what I had to do to accomplish that was take the case apart. So then you learn to drill out the rivets, prime it, paint it, put it back together, rivet it back together. Because before that, I had never even used pop rivets for anything. And I also bought case feet for that one. Sent it down to him, um, and just like that, I knew how to paint it. So my next, string of builds that came in, I was telling people I could paint that for you, the whole thing. If you have, a gaming room that's blue, let's do a blue computer. And all these builds up until now, I should mention, I was charging like 50 to 70 bucks to build your computer, and nothing to paint it or mod it. I just wanted to, have your stuff under my knife. If you're cool with that, for no extra charge. But it gave me a chance to kind of practice what I was trying to, get better at. So that was the trade-off for me. And I was always grateful to work with people and get to do, what I wanted with their computers. It's kind of a special bond. From that, I did a couple cool builds. I did, a Hulk themed build. I did a Punisher themed build. The Punisher was only my second build I'd ever water cooled. So I started introducing water cooling into, the projects I was doing. And then I did a little bit of a fun one. So when I did the Punisher build, instead of a payment, I took the client's old computer as a trade. And what that gave me was this neat little, mini ITX case. I don't even know the brand. Like, it was just a pre-built brand case that I couldn't find. But I'm a big Arnold fan, and I thought, I want to build my own computer and try what I've been doing for other people on my own project. I'm going to do a Terminator themed computer. And that, that went really well. I still have this half of the skull in my office. So if you saw the Terminator themed computer, the top half of the skull is actually on the CPU cooler. Because I remember when I was thinking to myself, I'm going to do a Terminator themed computer, I just went on Amazon and looked up Terminator stuff, scrolled through it for hours until I found stuff that I thought looked cool. And what I ended up doing was putting shades on top with the power button through through the eye. In the face of that Terminator skull on the CPU cooler, the idea was to have the RGB from the AMD CPU cooler kind of light up through the eyes. It didn't exactly work out like that, but what it did do was look pretty cool. Excuse me. And I liked that computer. I held on to it for a long time. And with that computer, I did water cool it, and with 16 millimeter tubing, which looking back, I would have used much smaller tubing. I water cooled it with 16 millimeter tubing, and there was a bend in there that I went kind of around the graphics card, which while I was building it was just like I need to go from A to B. This is what I'll do. But now that I look back, I realized that was actually pretty kind of a difficult bend. So it got really good reactions from the community. And I was told, hey, you should enter that into a build of the month contest on dasmode.com. Dasmode.com here in Canada runs like the PC Builders Forum and PC Modding Forum. They also ran the the Canadian PC modding competition yearly. So I entered it, and I was posted as a runner-up for that month. So like I came second place, but the comments on my build really shocked me. They're super encouraging and happy, and they loved the build, and they liked that I kind of came out of left field, making my computer look like Terminator when I didn't even really understand what the hobby was. And it surprised me, and it shocked me, and made me want to go much deeper into modding and like learn about all these guys in the forums and the stuff they'd done, and the different things they could do and what their projects looked like. So I was kind of how do you put it? I was kind of awoken to the hobby from that build, because up until then it had just been like little step, little step, little step. I'm going to do it for myself. When I swung for left field, it went well. And then I was shown, oh, PC modding is like a hobby that people take seriously and have taken seriously for years. And up until that point, I didn't really know that. So then the bar was kind of raised for all the builds I did after that. I started incorporating a lot of water cooling. I got to do a Venom themed build that I did all water cooling, and I painted on the glass, and that one was really cool. That was the first time I was ever approached by a brand, and it was nothing too crazy, but to me it was a huge deal that I had done a Venom themed computer, and Intel asked if they could repost it, like on their Twitter and Instagram. And to me, that was like, whoa, Intel wants to show my build, which is still a crazy honor today. But at that time, it made me feel like, oh, geez, I'm on to something. I got to carry on with this. I remember telling all the guys at work and all my friends and my girlfriend. And I was just, yeah, I was really pumped about that. And it kind of carried me even further forward into my next builds. So I did, I'm scrolling through my Instagram to kind of follow my timeline. I did, another 10 builds or so. And then I thought, or I was approached by a client who wanted a Wolverine themed build. And he told me a pretty significant story about how Wolverine, more specifically Old Man Logan, held a really important place in his heart because of how he gamed with his family members and which family member, kind of dubbed themselves as the Old Man Logan. And asked me if I could kind of, do them justice and add an Old Man Logan themed to their computer. So, it was a heartfelt story. So with all that, I wanted to do the best that I could. He also gave me an unlimited timeline. This build took me all summer in 2020. So he gave me a big story. He gave me, a significant budget and a lot of time, and just said, take your time and do as good as you can with the theme. And that build, again, I did my best that I knew how. That was the first time I ever used an airbrush, was during that build. And when I came out the other side and it was done, the reception from the PC modding and PC building community was excellent. I got featured in a couple magazines, one with Dwayne Carroll. And it was just, again, like a really warm reception and really a good feeling to have completed a build and have it, resonate well with people who are into this kind of thing. Which was a good feeling. So then I started reaching out to a few brands. Noctua was one of them that did offer a sponsorship for a few fans and a CPU cooler for a project. Following the Wolverine build, I found out I won the PPC build of the month on the PPCS, Performance PC Builders page on Facebook. And I got a plaque up on my shelf there sent to me, and a t-shirt and stuff. And my build is on the banner of the Facebook group back then, which was super cool to me. That was also another really cool community. Following that, I had more client builds roll out. Christmas rolled around, and I was working on a Revan themed build for the Cooler Master Case Mod World Series. Unfortunately, I didn't finish that build, and I didn't make it into the Cooler Master World Series that year. I would attribute it to I just bit off a lot more than I could chew with that build at the time, and I also didn't really respect the competition for what it was. I thought I could just submit a computer, not really gauging, the other guys entering the contest and how serious they were taking it and how much time they could devote to it. So when the competition was closing up and my computer was half done, because I hadn't slowed down on work or on client builds and really given that project dedicated time, I had to pull out. But everyone was pretty cool about it. They still liked the computer and everything. You know, I had 2 reservoirs on the sides going up, like Revan is a character from Star Wars with 2 lightsabers. He's both Jedi and Sith. I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd. And yeah, so that was kind of a reality check, which let me know like I'm doing good, but there are still ways I can mess up or overestimate or things to learn. And one of the things to learn through the Cooler Master World series that I didn't complete was time management with these things. And the more time you can devote to a project, obviously, the better it'll turn out. But if I'm going to say yes to something, I got to make sure I have the proper time for it. Another Christmas rolled around and I got, 10 or 8 to 10 computers ordered locally for me to do for people for Christmas. Completed those. There's some cool themes that came out then. I did an astronaut build. The Landcool 2 came around then. I did a Deadpool build, Lord of the Rings build, a bunch like that. And every time I was given a theme, I was able to progress with PC modding. So like the Lord of the Rings one, I started doing 3D printing. So before that, I hadn't done any 3D printing, but I just bought a 3D printer. So when they said yes to a Lord of the Rings build, it let me test out, that kind of tool in my toolbox. So I 3D printed the little tower, painted it. It was actually really cool. And 3D printing since become one of my favorite things. Following that, I had a couple builds go really well. I had a really long-standing project due for Be Quiet. Be Quiet is an excellent brand, and they were super nice to me in sponsoring their Dark Base Pro 900, and then me taking forever to do a build in it. But what I tried to do was have the motherboard tray replaced with the reservoir, but I didn't, I didn't know how to use a CNC myself. I didn't really know what that would entail. So I had a friend of mine named Leighton. He lives about 7 hours south of me, helping me on the CNC, and he's an excellent machinist. Do the motherboard tray in acrylic with a reservoir built in, but where it went wrong was my measurements. Yeah, I measured it wrong. So when I got it, the part was cool, but all the holes were wrong, and I didn't really know how to retrofit anything or deal with it. So I went back to Leighton and said, can we just make one out of aluminum? Which he agreed to, because he's awesome. But the whole thing ended up making that project take a super long time. But the reps at Be Quiet were both super cool with me, and they were happy with the build when it came out. So, I really can't say enough good stuff about that brand. I feel like everybody that I've met from Be Quiet has been super cool. I think it's like on their resume that you have to be chill to work there. Yeah. And then I had a few more, a bunch more themed builds come out, and I started pushing the boundaries with one of the ones I did a Call of Duty build. And I remember we had no dishwasher at the time, and we have kids, and it's a busy house and there's no dishwasher. So I was thinking about this Call of Duty build, and I'm doing the dishes and I'm thinking, how can I change things? How can I, one up this build? And I was thinking about when you paint a model, like a mini, like what's cool about a mini that's not on a computer? I thought about, oh, I'll base it. I'll base this Call of Duty computer. So what I did with that was I made a big board, put the Call of Duty computer and the external radiator on it, added some turf, ways to secure it, put a gun on top of the Call of Duty computer, and it ended up looking really cool. That's probably one of my personal favorites. If you're around on my Instagram, you can scroll down about halfway. The computer came out in March in 2021, and that was really funny to kind of think. Or it was fun. Sorry to think. I'll add stuff to the computer's kind of, how it stands, how it sits. I'll change that, and then go from there. And from that, I did the opposite on a little tiny InWin B1, which is an HT PC, like a home theater computer build. I took that thing and I thought, well, I'll give it little robot legs, but I'll put a base, like a turf, on top of it. So that was another fun one. That computer's pretty cool. And then I had a couple lawyers in town ask for like a his and hers computer, and those were fun. A couple of Thermaltake builds. I'm kind of rambling. So I could go through all the builds, continue going through all the builds, but I guess what you're getting from this is my origin story from a PC builder to a modder and how I kind of have progressed to being known as a PC modder and what PC modding is. So hopefully you've been listening and you've been somewhat entertained, but you found that every build I've just kind of added a little bit to it, be it the base, the stuff on top, the paint, the water cooling. And that is kind of what PC modding as a hobby is. It's taking the essentials, which is the 7 parts that make up a computer, or 6 if you don't have a case, and doing what you want with it in the ways that you know how. But there's a lot more to it. Like, you kind of become a super generalist in your skill set, because everything you go to do, you add to it and you add to it. Like 3D printing, I'm generally good at 3D printing now. I'm also generally good at painting and airbrushing, but I'm no expert at anything because I choose to just use these tools when and where I want them within the projects. I've always thought it would be awesome if I could sit down and airbrush, a painting, a piece of art for a week, get to work on a drawing of a flaming skull or something cool, But I haven't done that because I've kept myself busy with computers. So when I bust out the airbrush, it's always like, oh, I need a yellow stripe on this part. The airbrush would look nice for that. So hopefully you're picking up that as a PC builder, I became a PC modder with a whole bunch of skills that you get familiar with but not expert at. But as you go along, you do get better and better every time you open the toolbox and use that skill. Yeah. My Instagram feed just has the builds kind of getting cooler and cooler. I did a Razor Crest build, and that was really cool because that Razor Crest build, I entered that Canadian modding competition for the second time. So the first year I entered it, my Wolverine build came in 4th. The second year I entered it, my Razor Crest build came in 2nd, which was fine with me. The guy in 1st totally deserved 1st. Absolutely. His build was incredible. So I was super happy to be in 2nd. But it was pretty cool because it introduced me to some of the best contacts I have now. And I guess the story that I'm trying to kind of mention there is never don't do something because you're unsure. You never know which door is going to open more doors. So like people in the States started calling after I had came 2nd in this Canadian modding competition, because some of the judges there, they had friends and they talked to and they like Star Wars. And needless to say, I'm very happy I entered that Canadian modding competition on dasmode.com. And as time went on, I've just kind of progressed. I will say there was a few significant ones that stand out to me. One of them was with iBuyPower and their brand Height. They did a modding competition where they released the Revolt 2 is the case. Yeah, the Height Revolt 2. And they had people submit drawings. And the drawings were kind of like, hey, here's our new case. What would you do with it? And if your drawing was selected, you were then sent the hardware and given the timeline to do the mod that you proposed doing. And I remember I was sitting in my basement watching The Little Mermaid with our middle kid. And I got a text about this competition, and I thought, I don't know, competitions aren't really my favorite. And then I thought, but you know what? I got a funny feeling about this one. So I ran upstairs, opened up my sketchbook, and I drew something out really quickly. If you've followed me at all, you'll know my sketches aren't super high quality. They're pretty rough. But I submitted the sketch, and then, the time passed, and I got the message through Instagram from the height team, like, hey, we like your sketch. We want to select you as one of the 2 guys to do the mod. And I got on the call with the rep then, and he said, your sketch was a little rough, but luckily he had some imagination. So when he read what I wrote, he could interpret it the way I had hoped. And then I was tasked with something that I hadn't really done yet, which was, you know, instead of just being given a computer and told, hey, I want, a Zelda theme implemented, I was given a drawing and the parts and told, make this happen, even if it was my own drawing. And that was a fun thing to do, because then I kind of had to stick to my own guidelines that I had set and hit the target that I had set at the same time, as well as do a bit of video content, which was new to me. But that was a really fun project. And then following that, I would say the next big significant thing in my modding career has been my contacts with ASUS. It's Deb. So Deb's like, she's like my guardian angel in the PC modding space. She's incredible. She reached out to me and said, hey, we owe a project to a CNC company. Would you be interested in working with us and doing a project where we incorporate a CNC? And I said, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I knew that, and anybody listening knows, when a company like ASUS calls you, it's kind of a do or don't situation. So I figured if I'd say yes to this, it could open some doors. It's an incredible opportunity. But if I say no, they have a need to be met, and they're going to find someone else to do it if you're wishy-washy about it. So I said, yes, absolutely. Count me in. So the very next day, I called the CNC company that they're trying to represent for the project, which is I2R. And I did my best to wheel and deal a proper discount. And I bought the CNC the day after ASUS called me for the project, which they were aware of. She knew I didn't have a CNC at first. So that one was really fun, because that was a huge project spread out over a long time, but we didn't actually nail down specifics till the end of February, and the project was due for July. All the while, I'm trying to learn how to use the CNC, and I'm breaking stuff, and stuff's flying all over my garage, and it was a wild few months. But if you saw any footage from PAX West, or if you were there yourself, you'll see that we did in fact build Omni. Omni being a 4'4" mouse robot, who is one of the characters from the Asus ROG saga, as a fully functional computer, which was kind of what we decided. Deb, near the end of our negotiations, said, okay, I would like Omni themed, something Omni themed. And I took it kind of literally, and I just built Omni, which was a lot of fun. I did have to obviously rope in a bunch of help. I had Cam from Pixel Designs help me do the design for the reservoir and the building kind of bracket to hold the reservoir. I had Vanessa and Brian. So here's a funny segue. Vanessa and Brian. Brian is the guild leader that I sent one of my earliest computers to, and Vanessa is his wife, and she's into 3D printing, and she owns 3D printers. So when I had this big job land on me, I reached out and I said, hey, I need backup. My little printer can't print everything I need done in time. So they went to bat for me, and she started printing like crazy. 3 printers running 24 hours a day to get all the parts for Omni built. Boxed it all up, sent it all up to me. Then I was to interpret it all, put it together in post-process. But that's a fun way to kind of point out that, you networking and kind of working in a collaborative manner usually pays it back in time. So this is a 2-year difference from the time Brian got his computer to the time I needed help. And that's pretty cool. So this has been 35, 40 minutes long, quick summary of where I came from, how I progressed as a PC modder. There's a lot more in there. I had like Nick from Termita Squared taught me tons about painting. Tech Red Mods was always on hand for helping me 3D print. There's too many names to remember everybody now, honestly, but I've found, Tim from PC Works and John from Liquid House, Ron Christensen. Oh, I did a brief stint where I was writing articles for the Extreme PC UK online magazine with Nick. Different Nick over in UK. He's awesome. If you get a chance and you're into podcasts, look up Extreme PC UK, and he does a monthly gaming podcast that's excellent. I listen all the time, and he's hilarious. But while writing the articles there was when I first found Blue Horse Studios and the modder named Ron Christensen. And I did an article on a mod of his, but the whole time I was just mind blown by what he had built. Because I was understanding PC modding, to an extent. And then I found Ron. And when I saw his build, I thought, okay, there's a lot more to PC modding than I thought. And you can do a lot more with the computer than I thought. Like, look at what he just did. So then I was able to direct how I wanted to build these computers once I was introduced to Blue Horse Studios builds, because there was just such a feeling and like a complete mod, like front, back, top, bottom. The whole thing was really done in, custom. And I really identified with that style PC modding. Yeah. So from there, I was kind of able to direct how I wanted to do builds. So I started doing kind of a little bit more Blue Horse Studio-esque stuff, trying my hand at sculpting, more painting, things like that. So this has been my kind of 40-minute wrap-up story of where I've come from. I've been super blessed by all the help along the way. I'm sorry if I forgot your names. Just post a comment or whatever you got to do. But everybody in the PC community has been excellent. And everybody who's received a build has been excellent. Is one of my favorite things doing this is to complement someone's gaming room with a totally cool computer that fits right into what they want, and just brings their whole experience to the next level. Because I got into PC building knowing, how much fun I've had over the years with my friends on my computer. Yeah. So that's my story. I will say there's been a lot of challenges along the way. And I owe a lot to my girlfriend. She's put up with me constantly working on this stuff and talking about this stuff and thinking about this stuff and buying stuff for this stuff. And I'm super grateful for her. And I'm super grateful for everyone, behind me, pushing me forward, or everyone who's, on social medias. Like I'm mostly on Instagram, but I'm trying to get into Twitter and Vero and TikTok and everything, because content creation is a huge part of this. And it's really foreign to most of us, because we're like, just a bunch of nerds who happen to like 3D printing, and all of a sudden we have to be dancing on TikTok. It's a really weird dynamic, but most of us are trying. So yeah, I would love to hear your story. And if you want to reach out and get in touch with me and hop onto the PC Modding and Making podcast, write me an email, rhoadspcs@gmail.com. Go to my website, rhoadspc.com. Sorry, rhoadspc.ca, because I'm in Canada. And just send me a link to your stuff, and let's meet up, because this is a fairly new podcast, and I need to get the ball rolling by having some people join me on here. But for now, I really appreciate you coming by, listening to what I have to say, listening to what brought me to where I am today with PC modding and getting into a podcast. I think it's important that we develop a platform to talk about that is audio based, because not all of us want to be on video, not all of us want to be posting pictures, but to hop on and talk about our projects, I think is a positive thing. and my door is open to everybody. So awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope you have a great day, and yeah, just another thank you. Really look forward to having you here and having you come back next episode. So all the best.